Have you ever felt that, in the midst of the deepest darkness, a light can shine with unstoppable strength? Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a young woman who, in times of persecution and pain, chose to follow that light with such great faith that she transformed not only her life, but the lives of thousands throughout the centuries. This is the story of Saint Lucia of Syracuse, a martyr who lit up the world with her courage and love for God. Story: Lucia was born in Syracuse, a city rich in history and faith, during a time when being Christian was dangerous. From a very young age, Lucia showed a heart full of kindness and a deep love for God. Despite her youth, she understood that the true light of the world could not be dimmed by the shadows of injustice or fear. Her mother was seriously ill, and in desperation, Lucia turned to her faith, praying to God for healing. It was in that moment that the young girl realized her mission was far greater than simply caring for her family. She was called to be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope for those who suffered. But how could such a fragile young girl stand up to a world that threatened her for her faith? What gave her the strength to remain firm and fearless? Stay with us and discover how Saint Lucia lit the path with her example, and how her story continues to inspire us today. Lucia's mother, Eutychia, suffered from an incurable illness. Despite trying every known remedy, she found no relief. Lucia, only 15 years old at the time, never lost her faith. She had heard of a saint named Agatha, a martyr from Catania, and convinced her mother to make a pilgrimage to her tomb in hopes of a miracle. During that visit, while praying fervently, Lucia had a vision. Saint Agatha appeared to her and said there was no need to keep asking. Her faith had already healed her mother. And it was true, Eutychia recovered completely. Lucia knew then that God was showing her the path she was meant to follow. Filled with gratitude, Lucia made a radical decision. She would dedicate her life entirely to Christ. She took a vow of chastity and promised to give her inheritance to the poor. But not everyone welcomed this act of faith. One of her suitors, upon learning that Lucia had renounced marriage and her fortune for the sake of her faith, felt humiliated and consumed by rage. Instead of respecting her choice, he reported her to the Roman authorities, who were brutally persecuting the followers of Jesus. From that moment on, Lucia began her path toward martyrdom. But neither fear, nor threats, nor the power of Rome could extinguish the light of her soul. Lucia was brought before the Roman governor Paschasius, a harsh and merciless man. He couldn't understand how such a young, beautiful, and delicate girl dared to defy the power of the empire with such firm words about her faith. "Why do you refuse to worship our gods?" he asked arrogantly. Lucia, without hesitation, replied with a steady but calm voice, "I recognize only Jesus Christ as my Lord. He is the true light that guides my life." Enraged by her courage, Paschasius ordered that Lucia be taken to a brothel to be publicly dishonored. He believed this would break her spirit. But something happened that no one expected. When the soldiers tried to move Lucia, they couldn't. Her body became so heavy that even with chains and beasts, they couldn't drag her. It was as if a divine force protected her, as if all of heaven stood against the violation of her purity. Faced with this miracle, many began to whisper among themselves, some even moved by the young woman's faith. But Paschasius would not give up. He then ordered that she be tortured, hoping the pain would force her to give in. Yet the more she suffered, the more her faith shone. Lucia did not scream, did not curse, did not beg. She only prayed, and her prayer, gentle yet powerful, touched the hearts of those who heard it. Even some of her executioners began to weep silently, moved by the supernatural strength of this young martyr. Seeing that neither threats, nor force, nor pain could break Lucia, Paschasius fell into desperation. He then ordered one final and brutal torture, that her eyes be torn out. Lucia, whose very name means light, was stripped of her physical sight, but never of her inner vision. And this is where the miracle became even more evident. Though her eyes were taken, her face continued to radiate a serene peace and light, as if heaven itself was reflected in her. Tradition tells us that after her martyrdom, God miraculously restored her sight as a symbol of the light that can never be extinguished in a heart full of faith. Since then, Lucia has been known as the patron saint of the blind and of all those seeking spiritual clarity. Her mother, who witnessed her daughter's suffering and strength, wept, not from sorrow, but from reverence. She knew that Lucia was not simply her child, but someone chosen by God. Pascasius, even more enraged upon seeing his punishments had no effect, finally ordered her execution. But even at the brink of death, Lucia continued to proclaim her faith. Christ is my light, my strength, my hope. My soul does not belong to this world, but to my Lord. Those words were the last many would hear from her, words that would be remembered forever, like a beacon guiding through the storm. The final sentence was given. The executioner raised his sword to end Lucia's life, but even in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Lucia did not die immediately. She remained alive even after receiving the fatal wound. Her voice, though weak, continued to pray. It was as if God had granted her a few more moments to leave a final message to the world. With her eyes looking toward heaven, miraculously restored according to the faithful, Lucia said, "Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot touch the soul. The light of Christ lives forever." The people standing in silence around her, many moved to tears, understood they were not in the presence of an ordinary young woman, but a saint. Her death was not the end, but the beginning of an eternal light that would shine through the centuries. Lucia gave her soul to God on December 13th, in the year 304 at just 21 years old. In the midst of a dark era of persecution, her example became a blazing torch that could not be extinguished, even by death itself. News of her martyrdom spread quickly. Christians began to venerate her as a holy martyr, and her tomb became a place of pilgrimage, where many claimed to have received healings and miracles. But the most powerful part of her legacy was not just the physical miracles. It was the unshakable faith she demonstrated until her final breath. As time passed, the story of Lucia crossed borders. Despite having lived a short life, her testimony became immortal. Where there had once been fear, her name inspired courage. Where there was darkness, her example offered light. Christians began to call her the bearer of light, not only because of the meaning of her name, but because her faith illuminated weary hearts, persecuted homes, and doubting souls. Many sick people sought her intercession, especially those who suffered from blindness or spiritual afflictions. It is said that, on more than one occasion, those who prayed to Saint Lucia miraculously regained their sight, both physical and spiritual. Her devotion spread throughout Europe, reaching as far as the Nordic countries, where every December 13th, young girls dress in white with crowns of candles on their heads, remembering that true light is born from sacrifice, devotion, and faith. In Italy, especially in her hometown of Syracuse, Saint Lucia remains a symbol of hope in times of darkness. Her life is a reminder that no matter how strong the persecution or how cruel the injustice, God upholds his own. Lucia was not just a martyr. She was a living testimony that faith needs no riches, no power, no human approval. It only needs a heart willing to say, "Yes, Lord, I will follow you to the end." Today, centuries after her martyrdom, the light of Saint Lucia remains lit in the hearts of millions. She is not just a figure of the past. She is a soul friend to those walking through dark nights, a comfort to those who have lost hope, and a guide for those longing to see with the eyes of the Spirit. Many people facing illness, family crises, uncertainty, or fear turn to her with a simple prayer. Saint Lucia, you who lost your eyes for the love of Christ, help me to see with my heart what my eyes cannot understand. And an inexplicable peace arrives. Because when you walk in faith, even without understanding everything, God takes care of showing the way, just as he did with Lucia. Her feast day, December 13th, is celebrated with processions full of light, songs, and hope. It is a reminder that a young woman with no human power overcame the most feared empire, simply because she trusted in the power of God. Lucia did not shine because of human greatness, but because she allowed the light of Christ to shine through her. And that is the greatest lesson she leaves us. We can all be light if we let God dwell within us. Her story challenges us today. Would you be able to stand firm in your faith in the midst of darkness? Saint Lucia reminds us that no matter how young you are, how fragile you seem, or how dark the world around you is, if your heart is full of God, you can be light. In a time when darkness tries to dominate our emotions, our families, and our decisions, her story invites us to live with the eyes of the soul wide open, trusting that faith has a power the world cannot understand or destroy. Lucia was not afraid to lose everything because she knew that whoever has God already has everything. She inspires us to walk with courage, love unconditionally, stand up for the truth even when it's difficult, and never, ever let the flame of faith go out. Maybe you are also going through a dark night, an illness, a pain in your soul, a loss, or a crisis you can't understand. If so, today make a prayer with faith, just as Lucia did, and ask God to restore your inner vision, the one that allows you to see his love in the midst of it all. Because even if the world takes many things from you, no one can take away the light God has kindled in you. Saint Lucia, bearer of light, intercede for us. Amen.